There's human condition in fiction and fiction in human condition. So we're going to talk about what aspects of human life and experience you feel drawn to in your writing. Okay, so let's start with Kenneth. I know there's a recurring theme of hope in your book, Mouths to Speak, Voices to Say. Can you tell us more about this theme in your book?
Good question, Justine. I'm not sure about that. Well, perhaps background. The story collection of my book spans probably the last 20 years. Yeah, I'm a slow writer. Maybe I was more hopeful as a youngster. I don't know. When I was younger, I'm grateful that you saw that because I didn't see that. And I write through the lens of genre fiction. I don't know why, but that's what I skewed to as I was growing up. Yes, Sarge, I don't know if Claire knows it, Danton knows it, I'm sure, that we did go through some, what's the proper word I think, turmoil? Talking about speculative fiction way back when we met, what's the word? Blowback. When we were trying to write these kinds of things that it wasn't serious. But I'm glad that now it has flourished and it has grown. So I write through that, and if the hope comes out, then I'm glad. Because it was not expected. I do feel, just like any writer who thinks too deeply, you do see that it does get a little heavy when you look at the human conditions through whatever lens you use. Whether, a story is a story anyway, even if I look through it through the genre lens. So I'm grateful that the hope does come out, and if you do take that, maybe it's more a reflection of the reader than me. But I'm glad that it comes out. So Justine might actually be a more reflection of you than me. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you, Kenneth. Another book with a lot of short stories, because Kenneth's book is a collection of short stories. We also have I Got Something to Tell You, what a nice title, of Edwin Vethamani. How do the stories in Have I Got Something to Tell You reflect changes over time and the human struggle with conflicts and longing?
Hi, thank you for that question. This collection of stories actually spans quite a few decades. From my first story that was published in 1995, and it comes right through till post-COVID. So it's quite a broad period of time. And how does it reflect these 40 years? Yeah. My stories tend to center around a small ethnic group in Malaysia. I'm Tamil, Indian descent. So as a writer, I very much wanted to make us visible in a multicultural, multi-ethnic society. So my stories dwell on some of the challenges, very much in an Indian patriarchal society. So my characters are challenged in various contexts. Whether they are in straight relationships or whether they are more marginalized in society. So my works tend to give voice to these characters. Some of them are drawn from people I know, others are combinations of Malaysians that I come in contact with. And as much as it's about Indians, it's also about Malaysians. So in a multicultural society, so you can't help but interact with fellow non-Indians, basically Chinese and Malays and others. So these stories cover what it means to live in contemporary Malaysia, which has its challenges both at the ethnic level and at the national level.
Thank you, Edwin. That's so relatable here in the Philippines because we're a melting pot of different post-colonial heritage. Like we have Chinese, Filipinos, and we have a lot of different types of dialects and different types of cultures. So it's super relatable for a lot of us Filipinos. So next, we are going into how characters embody both separation and connection. So this is for Sarge, because his book, Joy, is about alienation and connection. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that in your book.
I think you only, I keep saying kasi parang out of official context. So, Joy is really about, the reason why it's called Joy is because it's about chicken joy.
Oh my
Joy
gosh.
is chicken joy, which is a real connection, has a real connection with every Filipino. No Filipino hates it. It's almost it's our national, not our national dish even, it's our nationality. No, but the point is that, and I want to relate it to what I said online.
Yes.
No, when I said that, I wish this panel were called fiction in the human condition instead of human condition fiction, because, and that's why I want to connect it to what you said about hope. No? Because we all like to, it's part of our human condition, it's part of the human condition to like to see stories and things and like to think that there's a story in everything. We like to think there's a plot, right? And if not, we like to create a plot. That's why I like reading, the people here, because we like to assume that things have a plot and people have a comeuppance, and if they don't, you get your reward or your punishment in the afterlife. So, Joy is just a collection of things that happen around the absurdities of everyday life. I can't explain it. It wouldn't be a novel if I could explain it, actually. But I just want to connect it to why we all write. To me, fiction is an artificial state of mind for human beings where we want to understand things and we have that hope, that things have a story, that things will have a beginning, middle, and when actually to me, we're just born with that kind of condition, looking for stories. So fiction doesn't necessarily reflect the human condition in as much as the human condition demands kind of fiction telling. We even like to tell ourselves that we have our own story. We're all main characters, main character syndrome. At least I do. No, I'm just kidding. No, I just here to swell the scene for Danton. Anyway, Yahoo. But seriously, that's how I feel about it. So it's very hard for me to write because to me it should feel as natural and as human as possible. Therefore, my structure takes a backseat. And if you read the novel, there is really no physical structure to it. No, there are just
It's very atmospheric, like the whole Christmas.
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
where was that?
The COD.
COD.
The whole Christmas show.
Yeah, the whole
COD.
Christmas show.
Yeah, the Christmas show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But part of the fiction's role is to capture the things that happen, right, and then make the reader understand that you're trying to make sense out of it for the reader, but at the same time you want to tell the reader that the human condition is the part of you that wants to make a story out of this. So it's very hard. It's a hard process. But I would like to thank each and everyone for being here, and also Penguin for putting us together. It's also a very hard process.
Thank you, Sarge. Actually, I want to relate that to Danton's coming up next because in one of his classes, and this really stuck in my head for a very long time, he said, life is a mess, it's chaos, and fiction is actually made up, and it helps us make sense of the chaos and the mess in our lives. So related to what you just said, fiction puts a beginning, a middle, and an end to things, arranges things so we can process it. But actually, life is a whole big mess. And now we get to Danton. So how does River Run explore the theme of identity in relation to family upbringing and the larger backdrop of society.
I remember the lecture, you know,
Yay!
I've been teaching for like 40 years. So when my former students say something, it's from the William Butler Yeats. Life is a glorious chaos. Chaos but glorious. So Sappho, of course, we have to insert the female voice. No? Sappho naman said, life, yeah, you know, chaos, all this male thing. But Sappho said, life is also beautiful pain. I like Sappho. So,
No, because I super love the structure of your story. They're like very short but very impactful and be recipes pa. And yeah, parang it was about growing up with, you know, the influence that parents have on their children. And also the larger backdrop, like I think this was during the dictatorship and it was like, you know, people in the national level seem like cardboard characters who land on the airport and then disappear. So yeah, parang tell us more about that condition of
yeah, this place is perfect because this was a military base.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My father, I was a very young boy. My father and I would come here and I learned how to shoot here.
Wow.
Like target shooting, you know, then karate, you know, boxing, all that shit. I did that because as a military officer, son, you have to know it. So writing the novel like Sarge, I didn't know how to write a novel. So I got a 1 month fellowship in an asylum in Scotland. Yeah, at the ghost. Now the ghost is here. So I got these. Because they began talking about the ghost of electronic devices, just vanished. So I got around to write a book of poems. So I revised the poems. I had 28 more days or 25. So I said I have many stories. I look at the gaps. If I can fill in the gaps and write short, like vignettes or flash fiction, I wanted something different. Because during my time, like 30 years ago, if you're writing a dictatorship, you have to be rah, sis bomba, red flag, and everything. I didn't want that. And then the novels before they ended with people power, and everybody's so happy. You know, the dictator is gone. But are they gone? The sun is here. Right? So my novel doesn't end with the dictator gone because they're here. It's hard to write the novel because my relatives always tell me I wrote about them. Oh, you have to wait for the next novel. That's your novel.
Fiction in human condition. You have to tell them it's fiction.
Yeah,
It's not true.
It couldn't be published in the Philippines because the publisher said your sex scene, what's wrong with the sex scene? He said you described the male organ with veins. I told her, Karina, the male organ has veins, no? Oh, are we live?
Maybe it's family friendly.
We'll cut that part.
That's why it wouldn't be published. My novel wouldn't be published until 25 years later. They wanted it to be a young adult novel, so I took out all the sex. Which it did work. Then they finally published the Penguin. I sent it to Nora of Penguin. The next day she called me up. The editor said, can you add 2 sex scenes? I said, why? Because in your novel, they all pine for sex. It's not consummated. I said, Priyanka Satta, the Indian lady editor, Priyanka, in the Philippines, if you're gay during my time, you just pray the rosary. You didn't touch your dick.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. My student is shocked now. Because you're supposed to pray. So but she said, a good point for writers. She said Danton is a novel for a worldwide market. If you expand it, in short, it's marketing. They told me we have to sell your book. Yeah, so I added a sex scene. Yung isa, I used my old story in the gay bar in Scotland. Yung isa, the guy was so drunk, he couldn't get it up. So that's what happened. That's why this novel, you know, this novel, where you can find it in the US, it's under gay sex, no?
Oh.
Yeah, in the UK, it's under modern literature. I like the British better. I think I'll end here.
Okay. Thank you, Danton. Yeah, that was very enlightening. And let's get to Claire. Claire, you moved from romance to like a thriller. Yeah, literary fiction. So how do characters in your book, Way City, deal with change and moving on? Actually, when I saw the synopsis, it was about different people from different socio-economic classes and different cultures, in fact, from Manila to Vietnam, etc. So, yeah, how was that like putting everything together from different perspectives?
I'll talk about Seven Superstars as well. And Way City. Yeah, no worries. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to see you. And I'll answer your question with another question for our audience. Who here, who has social media here? Who? Everyone ba? Raise your hands, don't be shy. Oh. I think it's my husband who doesn't have higher place, almost everyone. Okay, now, this is the reason why I wrote Seven Superstar. I'm just fascinated by social media. I mean, I'm not an influencer. I'm not even a Swiftie because I'm 50 years old. And I'm so fascinated by social media, and I wanted to write a book about it, about someone responding to sudden fame. And what happens is, your question is, how does she react to moving on? She acts in a drastic manner. She moves to Singapore, from Manila to Singapore. That's my character in Seven Superstar. And that's life, right? And in Way City, the changes, the shifts are even more drastic. I have three characters there, Carmen, Marina, and Hai. They are Filipino, Vietnamese, and Singaporean. And they experience horrific changes in their lives. They become part of a gang, they leave their gang. Someone experiences a shift in career, loses her job, and someone just feels left out. And for me, I think the theme that I wanted to explore was, it's part of us to sort of die and then start over. So in both books, actually, for Seven Superstar and Way City, there are the themes of starting over, of having a second, clawing even at a second chance in life is very much evident. And I think that's, and the human condition, it's emotions, right? It's conflict. It's a lot of inner conflict as well, external conflict. And in Way City, my characters who are from different socioeconomic backgrounds, they are good people who do bad things. And you'll see a lot of that until the very end. And yeah, I won't give too much away. I hope you read and explore and see what I'm talking about today. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of, yeah.
Wait, to answer your question, how I moved from first,
Yeah.
I always get asked this question. Okay, I wrote five rom-coms, chick lit books. Very light, very breezy, very perky. And then I write this literary novel, which is actually more me. Okay, my favorite author is actually Margaret Atwood, who writes in a very grim manner, okay? Very melancholic, grim manner. This is me. I sort of fell into romance writing by accident, by being there at the right time, right place. And I sort of like also doing it. But this is really me. In fact, Way City is quite big. This is already like 110,000 words. But of course, you cannot publish. But I actually wrote 200,000 words.
You had to cut it in half?
Yes, I had to cut that, and you know how painful that feels, right? You know how, to just even cut a paragraph, ang sakit. But I had to cut half. But this is how much more me I am in this novel? And my answer is, Justin, I have a frivolous side. I work for Cosmo, hello. I have a frivolous side, and I have a very, very serious introvert side. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. And people won't believe me, but I have two sides, and that is part of the human condition, to have two sides of me. You can be this, and you can be that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And yes. Thank you so much, Claire. So thank you everyone for answering my questions about the human condition. There's more, so I have like 3 more questions. One of them, it's directed to everyone. Anyone is free to answer. So it's about setting. So in fiction, the setting can significantly influence the portrayal of human condition. How do you use setting and context to enhance your exploration of human themes in your writing? And maybe not just setting, but also time. Yeah, so time and setting, because we're going back into the past sometimes, or way into the future, and that can be like part of the setting. So anyone's free to answer.
Okay, when I think of setting, the idea of time is quite important, and the place. My stories towards the end of this collection are actually set during and after the COVID pandemic. What I consider important is when my reader actually gets to the story, how will they react to the time and place that I'm referring to, and also the characters who inhabit that time and that place. How real is it to them? So in a way, as much as it is fiction, there is an element of social realism in it. There is a story entitled Love in the Time of Pandemic. I think it says love and sex probably, yeah. And one of my concerns was that before this virus, during this time of this virus, there was this very much a worldwide concern because it affected just like everybody else. But there was another pandemic of sorts before this, and it was worldwide, and somehow, because it affected only a certain section of the community, it didn't get that much attention. So when I wrote this story, I wanted to bring back or reconnect to this important phenomena of the HIV virus pandemic. So in the story, as much as people are busy testing to see whether they are COVID-free, and before you meet someone, you say, "Oh, by the way, I'm COVID-free." And so I have these 2 characters who claim to be COVID-free, but later something else happens and reconnects to the HIV epidemic that happened a couple of decades ago. It's still an issue. So in that sense, I'm quite aware, or I want to be aware of that time. Different things happen in different times. So, like in Malaysia, we have a political scar, the May 13 riots. So it's something that recurs. And so in my stories, you find that time, that period of Malaysian history comes back. And again, the different characters that and how people react. So in that sense, I think something is important so that people can see the physical setting itself as much as the characters who then inhabit that space at that time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And even the condition of pandemic is part of that, or it becomes like a character in it. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else wants to take that?
Yeah, I agree. Setting is so important. In Sun Superstar, it really affects the character. It changes the character even. Because in Sun Superstar, she experiences a breakup She's in Manila, she flees Manila, moves to Singapore. To have that kind of shift in yourself, to want a new, completely new environment, you imagine, and she changes when she arrives in Singapore. In Way City, obviously, the setting is important because the title is Way City, and Way City is a city in central Vietnam. It was the ancient capital of Vietnam, where the last Nguyen dynasty ruled until 1945. My gosh, until as recent as 1945. But I don't know, it fascinated me, and something can be magical. Or as a writer, you can make it magical. Mine is, I found it magical because the kings, the emperors there, they were also artists. They were also poets. And that struck a chord in me, and I chose to have this city as the place for my characters, for the place for the things to happen to my characters. And fun fact about Way City, it's so funny. The food is fantastic there because they said the former king cannot take a repeat of the dish. So they have 365 dishes, new dishes, completely different dishes, because the king wanted a new kind of dish every day, and we enjoy it very much. I mean, we enjoy it as tourists. We can enjoy this food, and these little things are magical for me, and they do affect the dynamics of my characters.
Thank you, Claire.
Actually, this is very helpful for me. Your question really helped a lot because it helps me understand the process, even my own process. No? Just as a side note, no, I recently produced a film based on a story of mine. It's called An Errand, and it completely split the audience into people who loved it and people who absolutely hated it. Who said, yeah, literally the story is called An Errand. They said, where's the plot? It's called an errand. That's the plot. But anyway, the point is, I'm going to be a little bit more about what I learned about the idea of setting. As a short story writer, I find that the setting is the moment, about the place and the time. Because you have a short story, and to me, short stories work the most. So whether, I don't care if you have an ending, if it's packed, if it's neat, or if it's open-ended, but to me, the setting is usually a place, a specific place or a time or a moment. No? A novel is different. No? The setting is the mind. Really, it goes all over the place. No? And that mind, when it goes back into memory, it goes forward into history, it goes forward into speculation. The setting is the mind. If you're going to read one novel to prove it, it's going to be Ulysses. No? Where in one chapter, it's about the history of the English language. In one chapter, in the mind of the thinker of it. No? So, but in film, no, in poetry, to me, the setting is the language. Really, the language is your playground. You can. This is why poetry is untouchable. You just know if it's bad or it's good. And if it's bad, you don't say anything about it because you'll be cancelled. But sorry. But for me, the setting of poetry is the form, the language, and the setting of film is film itself. The idea of something that crosses time or place. If you especially watch New Wave cinema, the French New Wave, no, where Truffaut was way back in the 1950s. Now, they freeze the film, right? They freeze the film while the music is still playing or while the characters are still talking, and they freeze the film. That's the filmmaker telling you that my setting is the film itself. It is not the character talking, it's not the place the character is talking in, it's the medium of the film itself. Just like in poetry, the poet could do anything he wants with language, literally anything. Misspell it. If you read, it was brilliant, language poetry. So that to me are the rough dividing lines. And of course, you can play around with that. You can have a novel whose setting is really the language itself. Many people have tried that. Just to assign River Runner. Ulysses' second novel is really a novel of language also. So when you think about it that way, it helps you parse your own output. and understand how this kind of form is affected by, affects setting, and the idea of setting. I'm not about to put any parameters or any constraints, but that helps me in my work.
Thanks, Sarge. Oh, Danton.
Yeah. You know, when you speak, Sarge, I want to go here.
Yeah, because setting is, you know, this book, oh my god, this book,
Part of something.
yeah, you know, this is like 40 years worth of work. There are other stories that they put the pictures of bad. Like, setting can be a function of the theme. You read the statement about life. Example, kasi teacher kami, give an example. One day in the Philippines, in 1990, Mount Pinatubo exploded. It's the biggest explosion in Southeast Asia during that time. I was here, I just arrived from England, and I wrote a story because what happened, were you alive in 1990?
Of course.
Because in 1990, the volcano just exploded and there's like ashes and white sand for many days. Then there's this young boy who wanted to be white.
Oh.
You know, like blue eyes and white skin. And then when he slept that night, his body was covered with ashes. And there's the shape of his body on the bed. And then when he went out, everything was white, like a graveyard. That was not mine originally. That idea came from Rolando Pino, the national artist. He wanted a film about it, but he died. So he was telling me all these ideas. So don't tell me your ideas, because if I survive you, I'm gonna steal your ideas, man. So I put there thanks to Rolando Pino. So the setting is a country that's very white with ashes. And ashes, of course, connote graveyard and everything. So a theme, setting can be a function of theme. Yung isa pa, the last one is, I have a story about this woman who practically went crazy because, you know, she had her boyfriend left her because he wanted to have a child. But it's like between 50 and death, no? So she cannot have a kid. So one day, she claimed to the world she had a kid. It's a mudfish. You who are my age know that like 30 years ago in the Philippines, there was this thing about a mudfish. I was studying in England. My classmates told me, said, oh, Danton, in your country, today there was a mudfish. I said, there's a lot. No, it's a baby. He said, oh my God, I'm from Thailand, you know. So I turned into fiction, but in my story, setting is a poorhouse. The dog tipped over the glass bowl with the mudfish and ate the fish. So the young man left the woman, and she went back to selling the market. Ito na yung setting market. So she looked, maybe I'll read the sentence, because I have to explain like briefly what it means, woman of Bantayan, page 74, just one sentence. Because when I read this in the US, the white people, I think they were horrified. So this is the woman. She went back to the market, standing at her stall of the brightest heads of squash and the ripest of mangoes. But when nobody was looking around, she would touch the mango's warm and smooth skin, wishing the mango were a grenade, and wondering when the world would end. That's her human condition. I didn't say she became crazy, or anxious, or triggered, whatever words now. I just showed it that, oh, ang ganda-ganda ng mangga, so beautiful, the skin of the mango, so smooth. I wish that this is a grenade so I can throw it at all of you. That's the ending. So when I read it in the US last year, they said, oh, you came from the Philippines. Yeah, it's a violent country. Yeah, Duterte killed 30,000. Misstatement pa?
Kenneth.
Thank you for the question, Justin. You made me think. This collection of mine that went over the last 30 years. When you asked about setting, I realized that it was a lot was not conscious. I don't know how it is, but you're driven by where you are, where you're from, your backgrounds, your everything when you write your stories, or how you make sense of the fiction in the world, or how you make sense of the reality of the world through fiction, excuse me. I have AI stories, so it's driven by that. Thank you for your gracious review, Para. So it's driven by the tech and the human interaction with that. And then I realized I wrote in anger. If I may say, I become identified with it. I don't by certain sectors, and it's both embarrassing and troubling. I wrote a story that was born from anger when years ago CNN reported about a pedophile ring that was busted in Southeast Asia. So I wrote a story. It's in here called Cherry Clubbing, and I set it in Manila, and it's from the point of view of the pedophiles, the monsters, and it was so horrifying. Now people think I'm sick. I'm some perverted guy for having put myself in that position. But it was driven by that setting. I used speculative fiction to use fantasy figures to represent the children, but I wrote it from that side to show that there are monsters among us who just look like regular people. So that was driven by that. And then of course there's the current trend. This just goes to show how how setting is not driven, but it's not consciously driven by me, but it's driven by the what if of the story. Everyone knows sci-fi or climate fiction is in right now. So I have a story here, the Santa Rita Breeze, and it's driven by an inundated Manila. So the setting does determine, but for me, in my case, in my process, to borrow from Sarge's own analysis of his, it's driven by the what if. So if you make sense of where you're coming from when you write your fiction pieces, from the realities that you're in, I'm betting you that is what is going to come out. The setting will just will grow there, and that will determine how your characters act in that setting.
Thank you. Okay, so wait, did everyone answer? Yes. Writing about complex emotions and conditions can be challenging. So what were some of the significant challenges you faced while writing your book? And how did you overcome? I mean, emotions, we all know you have emotions, but like what Danton was just saying, like, you don't have to say you were sad or angry. Actually, you can describe a mango becoming a grenade. So yeah, how did that play out in the way you wrote?
I always, a friend told me a long time ago, taught me something that, this great orator Terence said, I am human and nothing human is alien to me. Now, I always have that in mind when I write a character, and whether that, as you mentioned, whether the character is a pedophile or something even more disgusting than that. Human. So we owe it ourselves as writers, whoever wants to be a writer here, to ourselves as readers also, to openly accept these human things or to commit to them, whether we're reading them or writing them. As a writer, I feel that I should have no stops. If you're going to stop me, then censor it. Don't read it. I think we owe it to ourselves as human beings to portray humanity. This is where the human condition comes in. The condition of humanity is that you just become human. There's one, to use condition, there's only one condition in literature for me, especially in literary writing. You write what's absolutely human. Don't force your characters to be. We're not writing soap operas where the negative character will remain negative until they die. No? And literally you want to see them go down to hell and see them at the gates of hell. Diba? Also, you don't want a good character to become. Who is a good character in this room? Diba? So that is the challenge is not writing a complex character. It's accepting a complex character, accepting that characters must be complex, or the complexity of our characters.
Thank you.
Everybody wants the good mic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good mic. Reminds me of the the idea of the chorus or Bakhtin's chorus, where everyone is captured there. You don't choose. The voices of the marginalized will just be there, and we don't stop them from speaking.
So you can wait, another question to the audience. Guys, who here knows about the Ativan gang? Have you, who has heard of, tayo lang ba? Tayo lang ba? Oh my goodness. Okay, then let me tell you about it, okay? There's a tablet called Ativan. I think the scientific name is, the generic name is lorazepam. Okay, and they use it for that. I think I have taken it. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a sleeping pill, and when they do an operation for you for dental work or any kind of surgery, you take it. But there's this gang back in the 80s, 90s, correct? Okay, 90s. Anyway, I have read all the Ativan gang news items and online and YouTube stuff about Ativan gang because this is a gang, and this features very prominently at the start of Way City because my character actually belongs to the Ativan gang. Now, what is the Ativan gang? This is a group of scammers. They can be anyone. They can be children, young people, old people, aunties and uncles. They pose as a family. They approach single lone tourists in Luneta and Manila Bay, and they extract information from them and ask them about their trip, trying to gauge how much money they have. And then they invite these tourists to a karaoke session, saying, oh, let's have an authentic Filipino experience. Let's have karaoke. Someone's birthday is here, and you must celebrate with us. And we're also from the province, blah, blah, blah. And they slip the tablet in the drink. Sometimes, in my research, they even crush it and put it in an ice tray, and it becomes an ice cube. And so there's no trace at all of any tablet or any powder, and they put it inside the beer. Then their victim passes out, can actually be passed out for more than 24 hours, and they either bring to their home or they bring somewhere else. They take out all the credit cards, all the cash. But the thing is, and they spend it. The thing is, they bring it back. They bring the cards back. They put it. There's a point where they don't even steal the laptop, even the phones. They put it back. So then they bring this unconscious tourist back to the hotel. And when the unconscious person wakes up, the first feeling is not even I was robbed. The first feeling is, oh, I forgot to say goodbye to my friends. That is the Ativan gang. So they're very, very sneaky. And well, the next day, he goes back to his place, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, wherever. And then that's only the time when he discovers that he has been robbed because his credit cards are empty, or probably the cash, they left him some cash. So lots of incidents like this. And so one of the characters belongs to that gang, and she's a reluctant member of the gang because she needs money to find her mother. And to answer your question about how do I deal with complex emotions, I think as writers, I believe we have a lot of empathy, and that allows us to write about this thing. And emotions are never black and white, and we always want to avoid cliches. We always want to avoid, okay, we're sad, we're angry, we shout, we sad, we cry. We always want to avoid that. And so we're continuously exploring how to say a thing through another thing. And I think empathy, my point was empathy. But I also wanted to tell you about Ativan gang. And a lot of characters in Way City, actually, as I said, they are good people doing bad things, and they question themselves all the time. We all have this inner conflict. Is it right? Is it correct? But I need to do it. So what? And that's worthy of exploring. And as writers, even as individuals, I think it's worth thinking about. And I'm glad I can write about it. You and you guys can write about it in your journals. I always encourage people to write. If you don't want to write, read. If you don't want to read, write. Ganon. That's my advocacy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Danton.
You know,
Get a good night.
Emotions are hard to write. So what I do, setting helps, no? And then I don't know. I write flash fiction that's 2 pages, but in my book I have stories that are 50 pages. Like one of them is Lola. So the grandmother was a teacher who became blind during martial law. So it's a metaphor, of course, for the dictatorship of Marcos Sr., the father of the present president. And then, oh my God, just came back last week. And what I did is I listened to Stravinsky's Firebird the whole day while I was writing that story longhand, no, in 1990 in Scotland. Well, wala pang computer, no, there were no computers then, so the stories I wrote were written by hand. So that was like 50 pages. And then later I wrote, when I became older, I became less literary. So like I wrote this 75-page novella about this young gay man in the Philippines who, you know, studies everywhere. That's not me. Studies everywhere.
Fiction.
Fiction. So he goes to New York and then to get back his things, but his boyfriend is someone else, so that's okay. So this is, you know, my technique is when you have all these emotional things, you put them near the end. Near the end, kasi it's already the effects, no? And then just make it short, no? Avoid all this Filipino melodrama, telenovela about the athlete with the mother who stole the money. No, stop it, no? For writers, we have to be more original than that. So here, I'll just read very short because, you know, it's so hard to write these emotional scenes. So this is how I wrote about this ex-boyfriend in New York. But he just vanished like a spiral of gray smoke into the air. My days were flat and they had no taste. I survived all of these days through the shield of my stoicism. I just focused on my work, avoided watching love stories in the cinema, and turned off the radio when a love song went on air. In my mind, I dug a hole and buried Steve there. That, I thought, would be the best way to survive when you no longer have a heart, but just a gaping hole in your chest. 3 sentences.
Wow.
But it took me, oh my God, 2 days to write these 3 sentences. It's hard to write. You should be an accountant to make more money.
Yeah, I think Edwin or Kenneth.
Okay. Characters are vital in my stories. My stories tend to revolve around characters. And with each character, I try to extend my understanding of the human condition through characters. And from the time I was young, I was always very afraid of people who were different from me. And I remember we had a mute among us, and this is like in the 60s. And there was a lot of ignorance about what it meant to be mute. We only saw it as a kind of a disability. And so from the time I was young, I always wondered, how does a mute character actually see the world? How do we try to understand that? And if there was a way to communicate, what are the ways that could be done? So in one of my stories of The Gift of Silence, I actually have a character who is mute, and a friendship actually emerges between two of these characters, and I explore how they communicate, and how some of the things that he sees as a mute and is not able to verbally articulate, how does he then present this interaction? So how does an interaction between a person who's supposedly normal, like me or like us, how do he communicate with this mute person? How do you get into each other's world? So that was quite a challenging story to write, and I felt that there aren't too many stories where a mute character actually is given a strong presence. They always remain in the periphery. He had a worse still, if I say a dumb brother or a mute brother. But what happens if we bring them to the foreground? So that's what I try to do there, and I think that's probably one of the stories that challenged me the most. And certainly clarified a lot of things. I actually talked to a friend who is mute, and he was telling me how when he's really desperate, he would write on somebody's palm what he wanted to say. So yeah, because the frustration and the desperation that sometimes comes about. So yeah, although that doesn't happen in the story, but there's other ways in which they interact.
Thank you, Edwin. Yeah, Kenneth.
Possibly.
Only my words. And it started on this side. Whoa, okay. And it started on this side. Thank you for the question. I have to say, for stories, at least for me, in my opinion, emotions are crucial. If you don't have that emotional connection to the readers from your writing, it kind of falls flat, at least for me. That's what I look for, that emotional connection. Thankfully, as writers, to borrow from Claire, we all have empathy, and so we try to build on that. Yes, I try to infuse my stories with that emotion. It's easier in a novel, you have more space. In a short story, just like Danton said, it takes time to, how do you do that with less? And sometimes you have to show more with less, especially in a short story, that every word is crucial. And again, to borrow from Claire, it's hard to cut because you sometimes feel, does it lack? Is it lacking something? Should I put some more? Or will it work better with less? So you have to put aside the story for a while, maybe a week, 2 weeks, come back, read it again, check it. Do I feel that? And then sometimes you go to your reader, your quote-unquote, the reader you have in mind. In my case, it's my wife, and she tells me if it works or not. Of course, she tells me a lot of other things, like scolding me all the time. But let's not go there. So that's it. So one of the challenges, like I had in this book, one of the stories that I was asked to write a long time ago by Charles Tan, who was the editor for Laureate, Filipino-Chinese speculative fiction that was published in Canada. Yeah, he solicited a story for me, and I ended up writing about the Chinoy experience because that was the specific theme. And at the end of that writing, this is where Danton said you avoid the cliches and stuff, and I'm like, shoot, I took a cliche. This is the typical Chinoy cliche, and I was wondering, is this it, or is it only a cliche because of me? And since my wife is also Chinay, it also felt cliche to her. Yeah, I'm sorry, Marka. Yeah, it's Chinese Filipino. So we wrote about that, and I put it out. Charles accepted it. It got published, and I was wondering, this won't work. The emotions are heavy, but it's typical. And then I find out years after. What's the political? Black American. LeVar Burton picked it up for his podcast. The title of my story is Cricket, and I'm like, why is the Black American affected by this story? And I got so surprised. And I went back and forth with his manager. Her name is Kathy Smith. Can you believe that? I mean, you're talking about cliches. The name of his manager is Kathy Smith. And we went back and forth, and even she was saying, we understand it suddenly. And I couldn't fathom at first why there was that connection. And then they said there was that emotion, because sadly, maybe I'm saying too much, but it's a tragic tale about a father figure who can't accept his realities. So Sarge knows that because I've submitted some stories to him about father figures. So he has an inkling of what was going through my mind. So if you get that emotion, and since it's crucial, and you get that emotion to be universal, you will hit the mark with other human beings.
What is the title of the story?
The title is Cricket.
Cricket.
Cricket, because the cricket is it's an important insect in Chinese mythology. So there's speculative elements there. Of course, later on I find out that there's, stupid me, Jiminy Cricket pala sa Pinocchio, di ba? Sa Disney. But that was completely not in my head when I was writing it. I just wanted to connect it to that. So the title is Cricket. The bar picked it up for his podcast. I was so grateful, so flattered. But the emotion is crucial because that's how you connect with writers, with readers who are from a completely different background. So that's my
Thank you, Canada. Thank you, everyone. And actually, we want to open the floor for questions from the audience. We didn't get any through the QR code, but you can ask your questions now. Yeah. We have one. Oh, thank you. Okay, this is for Kenneth. How long did you write the book? And I guess you said 2 decades. Yeah. And did you stop at some point? When you started writing it, did the story or stories change?
Thank you for that question, whoever you are. Hello. Thank you. Yeah, it took a long time. Actually, I never consciously wanted to or put up a collection initially. I would just kept on writing, submitting. That's really just me. And then when I look back, I realized that, hey, I got enough for a body of work. So I was told by another Penguin author that, hey, why don't you send here? So I sent it in, and luckily it got accepted. This is actually just half. There was a budget constraints. So the other half is not in this book, which is fine. That's cool. And sorry, the second part of the question was, did
it change? Did you stop and then change? But I think you submitted them all, so they were finished.
Yes, they were finished works already that had been previously published, majority of them. Did it change? Looking back, yeah, you find out that a piece that you write is a snapshot of who you were or what struck you for that time, right? It's who you were at that time and what pushed you, what inspired you, whatever affected you to write for that time, and you remember that person. So some of the stories I wrote were as a 30-something, as a 40-something, now I'm 50-something. So you remember that person, you remember that man. In my case, you remember that man, and you see the change to who you are now. You see the progression, which is actually pretty good. How it impresses me, because if you're writing the same thing that you were before, maybe you haven't changed and then you wasted all those years. So yes, that's the answer. So I like that there were those changes.
Thank you, Kenneth. Now this one is for all the writers. I'm sure this came from somebody who wants to write as well. So how do you get into the writing mood? Do you have like writing rituals, routines, stuff like that? Yeah, stand up.
Yeah, because people come for it. I want to speak first because people always, sometimes, that's why I avoid Facebook. Like young people accuse me of one said, you abandoned the Philippines. I want to say hello. I'm here every 6 months. So I explained I have to leave because I cannot write here. It's so noisy here, no? It's so noisy. Like I arrived May 4th, May 18 from the US, so I rented an Airbnb in Katipunan condominium. I only stayed for a week because the neighbor was renovating on the left side. The right side, it was drilling. So I transferred to an Airbnb in Project 3, very quiet. But I didn't know there's a coffee shop until 2 a.m. And it was a jeepney route. Jeepney is like small transportation, whatever, jeepney. So that's why I go to Thailand because my friend owns a hotel, gives me 50% off. I went to the US, I got the grant. I need silence to be able to write. Like these stories, I wrote them, for a long time, and I wrote them in school in Ateneo during weekends. Because there's nobody in Ateneo during weekends. You need silence to be able to write. And before that, you need silence to be able to reflect, to conceptualize,
it takes time. Like people are saying, ang dami mo namang libro, taon-taon, you have a book. Yeah, but those were written in the last 30 years. Only in the pandemic, I don't want a pandemic anymore. But I was in Malaysia then, right? I was working with them. I was there in Cheras, no? Cheras is like beside the mall. You could only leave the house if you go to a pharmacy, a mall. Otherwise, the police very strict. They would jail you. So I wrote and translated there Lopica Santos. 800 pages. Oh my God. The next year, I moved to Manila. I translated Amado Hernandez. 700 pages. No, I couldn't leave the house because we live beside a hospital, and every night I could see, the corpses. I couldn't leave. That's what I wrote, and then I finished Amado Hernandez. In short, you need time. You have to fight for your time. You have to, you have to fight for the time. So I don't know how you do it, but me, I always try to look for a space, even a quiet place, where I have a clean, well-lighted place by Hemingway, or a room of your own by Virginia Woolf. And then my last point, because there are many young people here, don't rush. Huwag kayong magmadali. Don't rush. Just write it, and then don't think of getting published and making a lot of money. Just write, because the prize, the reward, is the writing itself.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Danton.
Ay, sorry question ulit. Question again! Come on! Wait, who here reaches for their phone first thing in the morning? Okay. Me also. Almost a lot of us, phone, first thing when you wake up. You? Ikaw, sorry. Well, I'm curious. Ikaw ba, you? Malakay. Edwin, do you reach for your phone?
No, it is for something.
My God.
The microphone. Ask if it is vein. This is the veins.
The mic. Okay,
This is why.
not such an innocent question about phones. Wait. So a lot of us, right? A lot of us reach for our phones. Why not? Let's reach for our pens and write something. Because that's how I do it in a way. For years, I have a journal by my bedside and I write first thing in the morning. It doesn't matter what. And this is like the best. I feel that in the mornings, you're the best. You're your best self in the morning. Fresh. You got rest. You just came from a fantastic dream. and there's something called morning pages. But it's great. Just keep a journal, and instead of reaching for your phone and checking Facebook or Instagram, get your paper, get your notebook, get your pen, write down anything. I slept well, I slept badly, I had a fantastic dream. My grocery list, I need toilet paper. It's fine, just write anything. But this act of writing, and not computer, I hope not computer. This act of actually writing down something the first thing in the morning helps in setting your day. I find that it works for me. And I get a lot of ideas from that. Of course, it can get out of hand. Like, I'm still writing 30 minutes after, I'm still writing an hour after, but it's a way to get into writing and to get into non-judgmental writing, I guess. And I would encourage you to do that if you're in the middle of a project right now or if you're stuck. And I want to share about my process. When I'm writing a novel, I like Danton, I need silence. And I look for this silence in many, many places, all over the world even. But actually, you can find it in the early hours of the morning. So, when I have a deadline, I wake up 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and start to write. And usually, these are the best pages. And then I edit in the afternoon. And I think that, and I agree also with that one, that we have to fight for the time. No more saying, I need to get into the mood. There is no mood. There is no mood. Also, I feel there's no writer's block. Do you agree? But think about this. Think about this. There is no writer's block. There is just you who cannot write, or, I don't know, you're being someone to write, or you're tired, or there's something happening. But, yeah. So, you need to fight for the time and grab whatever time you have. I also have, right now, I have even a snip, like a thin notebook with me. Because, I don't know, maybe I'll be struck by something and I need to write it down. So, recording is also important. It's fine, okay, we experience this intense emotion, this intense moment. But it's actually very important to write it down, to record it. Fine, use your phone. I use my notes app in my phone. That is still writing, and that is how you help tell a story, tell your own story. And remember that there is a story in each of us, and only you can tell that story. So, pens tomorrow, not phones.
Yes, thank you, Claire. Except, nowadays, the kids don't write anymore with pens. Penmanship isn't part of education anymore. Anyway, Kenneth, go ahead.
I agree 100% with what Danton Remoto, but just to offer a different perspective that it can be different for different people. Where she writes in the morning, I'm useless in the morning. I'm useless, and I don't even have the energy to grab the same thing that Malachi grabs. So I'm useless in the morning. It takes time for me to wake up. I need coffee to start moving, those kinds of things. But my process, well, as my wife likes to say, if I am a kid now, if I was a kid now, I'd probably be diagnosed with ADHD. I'm very manic, and then super focused, laser focused. So the phone is my enemy, the laptop's my enemy. I have to turn off the Wi-Fi if I want to write. And actually, there's this small market now that's going on about distraction-free writing tools. And I always go back, it's just called pen and paper or the typewriter. But they're actually inventing just distraction-free writing tools. And I bought into it. You look it up, it's called the Alpha Smart Neo. It's this old gadget that's just for writing. But I'm looking for that distraction. Thankfully, and I'm going back to my wife, the wife and I, the reason we have a good marriage, or we're still together, maybe not a good marriage, but that we're still together, is that she controls the remote control at night, and she can watch all the videos and films and TV shows she wants to watch, all she wants. I'm not interested in that. I'm just there on the bed, my coffee table and my Alpha Smart, or whatever tool, my laptop with the Wi-Fi off and just writing, and we're happy. And that's why we're still together. So I guess my point is, it works for different folks, but everything they said is right. You just have to find a way to put the words down on the paper or to the screen, and just let it go.
Thank you, Kenneth. Edwin.
People have decided what I do the first thing in the morning. No, for me, when I get up in the morning, there's so many things to attend to. My dogs are waiting there to be fed. Life just takes over. And when I begin to have some control, is probably after I've had a gin and tonic in the and then spend some time with family. And finally, about 10 o'clock, when the rest of the world goes quiet, and I think we all have this idea of silence and quietude. I think that's when I go into my own space. I have a little corner that I created in my living room for myself. Not that there are many other people, just my dogs outside and my partner. but still there's a sense of you there. Then I begin to write, and that could go on for 20, 30 minutes. So if I decided I better have a melatonin to get a deep sleep if I stop earlier. But basically, yeah, I kind of decide what is it I want to write. Very often, if I have nothing new to write, then I will do some editing, rework things that I'm looking at. And I also look at other writers' work as an editor, so you're kind of writing at the same time you are not necessarily doing new work. It's reworking, redrafting, and I think so. As you mentioned just now, yeah, the evening works better for me, and in the daytime I tend to be a reader. I tend to be reading more. So that itself is part of my writer's life. I think I often tell my young writers, they ask me, so what do we do? I said, read, read, read. And when you start writing, maybe that's when you have to write. And you may not agree with the idea of a writer's block, but there are times when there is this something very resistant that, yeah. So what you do is if you're not writing in this direction, you write something else. And I'm lucky in the sense that I also write poetry, so sometimes I switch from prose to poetry. So writing that, I think, in a way, it gives you a different outlet. I'm not the same writer that I am when I'm writing poetry. And writing short stories, clearly, you are a different persona altogether. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Edwin and Sarge. I didn't think I would forget you.
I don't know how to answer that question. Not really about mood. I don't know because I haven't written much over the past months, so I don't know what is going to push me to write something. No? But I guess it depends. Maybe I'm in between moods, I suppose. I really can't answer it. I can't answer it because I respect the person who asked the question, and I would love to answer it correctly. I would love to be. Okay, I'm going to be honest and say that I did my best writing often at my lowest moments. I can say that, but I'm not going to say wait for your lowest moment to write. No. I could say best to write under influence, whether it's love or but I think the general, since you put me on the spot, I wasn't speaking. The general sort of mood that I would like to be in when I'm writing something is the mood that you want to bring something. You want to bring something in your own work. If you have work to do, bring something in your own, in what you've read. There are many readers, and it's not incumbent on readers to become writers or to become critics, for that matter. But writers, I should say, is one mood that actually drives me. It's the mood of wanting to read something, wanting to write something that I wanted to have read. No, and it's not there. No, so I'll write it na lang. No? And that kind of mood always drives you to make something new, make something that you never encountered in your life, whether it's been done. No? But there's also that other overhanging mood that says, is a general rule, no? Whatever you think you're gonna do, it's been done, and it's been done better. That really drives you nuts. That will drive you crazy, no? But then that's what writing is about. It's really driving yourself until you're really, you're really out there on a limb. So, yeah, those two things will drive you nuts. But writers are nuts.
Yes.
No, that's why we have day jobs. We have other things to keep us alive. We have families to keep us sane also.
Thank you, Sarge. This last question is for Kenneth again. Okay. And this is related to the fiction in human condition. Were there real life persons used as inspiration for your characters?
I'm not grabbing anything, okay? The answer is yes. Sometimes it's an amalgam of people you know, right? You guys, everybody in this room knows so many people, right? And they're all different. You have your friends, you have acquaintances, you have enemies. If you make the right enemies, then you're a good person. So my point is, yeah, you make an amalgam of them. And yeah, I admit that some of that came into my book. Some of it is more solid, based on real people. Some of the characters, especially in cricket, which is the closest to the reality, since I write in genre, it's the closest to reality. I'm grateful to Sarge for accepting one of the stories that were written here when he was the editor of the Philippines Free Press. Yeah, When You Let It Go, it's about a bullying story, so that's close because I wrote about some of my friends and how we suffered under bullies, who were also real people. And I apologize for the violence in that story, I remember. So.
Thank you.
So yes, the answer is yes. It's based on real people. But when you grow enough, when you read enough, when you know enough people, when you imbibe and absorb enough of our work and everyone's work and all the tropes, the endless tropes and everything that's been done by everybody else, you find out that you can build it and make it your own, and the characters that come out become even more reflective. That is my.
Thank you, Kenneth. That was the last question. But yeah, if you have face-to-face questions you'd like to ask, those who are so shy, you can still come up here or raise your hand. Okay, if not, yeah. So now we're wrapping up. So to all of the writers, to the authors here, could you share a final thought or message that you hope readers will take away from your books? In any order. Danton.
Yeah, before. I answer that. You know, because there are many young writers here, don't tell people what you're writing. Kasi it will we go back to Shakespeare. Writing is an expense of the spirit, so you have to keep it inside you. Really. But also, like in the Philippines 30 years ago, I want names. My friend told her friend about the story, and then he wrote a story at Juan de Palampa. So don't tell people. And this is very Filipino. No, you go out, you tell friends, oh, I will, future tense. I will write this novel. I will write this story. That's why me, I don't attend. I love my friends, but I don't go out in these writers' parties because they all talk in the future tense. Hey man, just write it. Wala na yung I will write it. E puti na yung buhok natin. We're dyeing our hair na. You're still using the future tense, will, no? Write it now, no? And then your question. I've been writing for a long time, no? Like 40 years. And in Ateneo, I wasn't an A student in English. The A student was a seminarian who tried to kill himself. So, I'm still alive, no? I wasn't the best in school, but I just worked hard, no? I just read a lot, Angela Carter, because Sarge is right, you have, and Kenneth, you have to make it new, like Ezra Pound said, make it new. So I began reading writers that are different from me, like Angela Carter, who wrote the fairy tales. Ito yung Intellectual Garcia Marquez was an experience. My teacher, Ray Sunico, said, basahin mo yan sa graduate school. I was so shocked because I went to Ateneo with American teachers and suddenly I was reading the Blood Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude. It's like my stories, my grandmother's stories, and Filipino realities. So just write the stories inside you that don't tell people. And don't get disappointed. No, my novel, River and Lost in the Palanca,
it was turned down by several publishers, you know. And then when Penguin accepted it, akala ko prank, no? Yeah, because Nora, oh my God, that woman, the publisher wrote me an email a day after. She said, "Dear Danton, I'm reading it now, I'm on chapter 5, but I don't know if I'm going to buy it." Ako naman, but at least you wrote me a day after I submitted it. I was so shocked because you'll never know what will happen. And lastly, don't read na lang the comments about your book in Facebook and the internet, no? I'm sorry, but I love the Philippines, but sometimes we're driven by jealousy and envy. Look at Kaloy. Carlos, you work hard for 2 gold medals, no? I mean, we are being published by the world's biggest trade publisher. And then I encourage people to submit it. Minsan, you know what they tell about me? That Nora loves me so much. She publishes my book every year. Because she always asks me every December, "Danton la, what you have for next year?" No? So this is my final word. No? Be careful of what you dream of because they might come true. No? I wanted to write, to be published with Penguin, now I'm being published with Penguin. So there's an unwritten rule that you have to publish a book a year. It's also one way to make money lah. The more books you have, the more money. No? Right, Claire, bestseller.
I think for me, why I became a writer, and I think that's something we often ask ourselves. Why do I want to be a writer? So if you are thinking of writing, you have to ask yourself, why write? And the answer that I found for myself was that, firstly, I want to write for myself. And I want to try to understand the world in which I exist. And also at the same time, even as I try to clarify through writing, I also want to tell various stories, my community's stories, stories that I can tell, and stories that have not been told. And more importantly, to write stories that will resonate with others. So moving from what is an individual experience to an experience that other people can connect with. And of course, we subscribe to what Ian Foster said, only connect. If you connect with your readers, then I think you have succeeded. Because, and for me, I like this idea of resonating from myself, moving from the very specific to something which is hopefully a universal experience. So people say your stories are about love and loss and loneliness and alienation. Yes, that's because we all go through it, but we all go through it differently. And I think that's what I hope to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin.
Oh, okay. Before I was a writer, I was a reader. And this was, but I also started with poetry. I wrote a poem at 9 years old. But, you know, I was almost like an only child because my older brother is 16 years older than I am. So I was a very lonely child, and the books were my friends. And I read a lot, and they made me feel something. They made me feel hopeful, they made me feel sad, all sorts of emotions. But all in all, I changed because of these books. And that made me want to write something that will change. It's so ideal, right? That made me want to write something that will give another person that feeling of change, of hope, of reflection, even just reflection. And so that, and I just wanted to, wait, what is the question? not all of you are writers, but you read, right? And I encourage you to read. But I don't know, that thing I actually want to tell people that it came from that very pure desire to give, to share to others what these books have allowed me to feel. And that is why I became a writer. Okay, and that's that. And the other thing is, those of you who are writing, I agree with Danton. You shouldn't write and think, oh, I want to be published. You write something that's compelling to you. That is your story. And I do believe each one of us has a story to tell. And you may not tell it through writing. You may tell it in another way, through an Instagram post, for example. But each of us has a story. And once you get that story out, don't think about publishing. But as a writer, as authors, even as a reader, I would encourage you during these times to find your community. To be, I got these book deals by being at the right place and at the right time. And that was because I sought out like-minded people. I attended book launches, I attended book talks, I messaged writers. During these times, everyone actually is a writer, even, I feel. Everyone has their own brand. So community is all the more important. Find people who share your interests. Be out there. Honestly, I would rather be sleeping. I just want to sleep. But I have a responsibility to let people know about my story. Let people know about my novel and the lives of these people and how it could affect you. So I'm out there. I talk to people. I get to know people, and I think as writers, that's one of your responsibilities. You make your own opportunities. Thank you. Thank you.
I think I want to start by saying I'm an advocate of literary writing. I just want to say that. I'll say that over and over again until I run out of readers. I'm really an advocate of literary writing. And one of my I don't want to be prescriptive, but I want to say, if you really want to write, you must separate the part of you that wants, that wants an audience, that wants a following, that wants to be an influencer, that wants to influence. I think you need to come from a point of compassion. No? And when I say compassion, it's your compassion for the complexity and the reality of human life and the human condition. This is particularly important for us, and I include all post-colonial Asian nations, no? All post-colonial Asian nations, where we have almost a responsibility to be compassionate to ourselves as writers, to the characters we write, because we're not done yet, no? We have to separate that part of us that hungers for leadership, hungers for 10,000 people at a book launch, that hungers for 10,000 followers on Instagram, but just hungers to write something that's authentic and real, and has real compassion, and fuck the audience. No, I mean it, because we start with real compassion for the real things in life. I just want to say that. And I'm so scared that we lose that. I'm so scared that we lose that. No? As I see more and more younger generations of writers, putting influence first, putting following first. No? I look up to people like Claire, actually, who I mean, sorry to talk about you. Because I'm a writer, I make a fact. But the point is that she took I don't know if it's a leap downwards or upwards to literary fiction. And I just asked her now, are you going to accept the fact that you might have fewer readers now that you've left to a literary fiction. When I say literary, I'm going to say literary, it means that wala kang kontrabida, wala kang, you don't have a hero that you will die for, you know? When you don't have a hero that you die for, or a kontrabida that you will kill, until the end, it has no redeeming values until the end because the formula calls for it. You have no compassion for that character. Therefore, you have no compassion for yourself. No? And when you take that leap, it's a huge leap. And I have a lot of respect for people who choose that kind of reality, because that's exactly what the human condition is. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarge.
Feeling only dear panelists and fellow panelists and just I'll just poke in. We started talking about human condition and fiction, or as Sarge more aptly put it, fiction and human condition. If you think about it, we're all down the rabbit hole, whether as readers or writers. We're already here, as Claire put it. That's why we're here. We love the story. We were hooked by the stories early on in our lives. We started as readers, some of us are writers. We're in the rabbit hole, and it's really just about finding meaning. And if you think about it, all human beings have been trying to find that meaning through stories since time immemorial. If you think about all the mythologies that we've gone through from the different cultures and their different settings, pre-internet, when you were not exposed to other parts of the world, you were still trying to make sense of that world through stories. That's what mythology is. Some would argue that's what religion is, and that's all just stories trying to find sense in what we're doing. And that applies actually to life in general. And so as writers, if you're trying to look for that, that's what you do when you try to explore your own settings, your own worlds, your own characters, or people you know, or the stories you write, or what grabs you, whether it's literary or genre in my case. You do it, and you try to make sense of that because it brings meaning, and maybe, like a nod to Justin and Sarge, maybe hope. Maybe there is hope when you find your own personal meaning in what you go through when you explore those stories. May I end with a quote that really guides me because it applies both to writing and to writing and to life in general. It's been with me since forever because it helps guide me, or at least, yes, it does give me hope. So it's from Michael Cunningham's The R's. Okay. We live our lives, we do whatever we do, and then we sleep. It's as simple and as ordinary as that. A few jump out windows, Danton, your friend, a few jump out windows, or drown themselves, or take pills, more die by accident, and most of us are slowly devoured by some disease, or if we're very fortunate, by time itself. There's just this for consolation. And are here or there where our lives seem, against all odds and expectations, to burst open and give us everything we've ever imagined. In this case, it's the meaning we find in our stories. And are here or there where our lives seem, against all odds and expectations, to burst open and give us everything we've ever imagined. Though everyone but children, and perhaps even they, know these hours will inevitably be followed by others far darker and more difficult. Still, we cherish the city, the morning. We hope more than anything for more. Heaven only knows why we love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, authors, Kenneth, Sarge, Claire, Edwin, Danton, for the gift of your stories. They're really such a gift. And thank you everyone for
Thank you also,
being here.
Justine, for hosting it so ably.
Thank you everyone for being readers, and some of you wanting to be writers too. Thank you for coming here, for celebrating fiction and the human condition. So before we do the book signing, we'd like to invite everyone to have a picture. We'll have a photo option. So the audience will have to face this wall. So everyone will be in the picture. Yeah, and here, now.